First of all, thank you guys so much for being here. I just did a deep dive into commissions, and it's really interesting. Like there's some, we all think we know about what the market's charging. We all think we know about like how to compete for listings and what we should charge and all that stuff. And the reality is like, and this is not even on you, this is me as well. I don't think that we as a group really spend a whole lot of time thinking about commissions. I think that it's just like part of what we do. We just go out there and we do it. And what I realized I'll tell you where this stems from. We had a little bit of a battle between myself. Obviously, I run the district, so there's 6 offices. And we, for the most part, we try to maintain, some normalcy in terms of what we're charging for commissions and all of that. But there's not like a hard, fast rule about commissions with Coldwell Banker. There's not like you have to charge X and you have to pay out Y. Very much market dependent. But I kind of got into it with another manager that was from a different area. We had taken a listing in their area that we put out a lower commission than that person thought was sufficient. And what became like interesting to me is the way that I was looking at it and the way that this person was looking at it. And, we kind of battled along these lines. And I'll be honest with you, like I was a 6% listing agent when I was in sales. Like, and I'm not saying that, as, oh, I'm better than you or anything like that. But like, that's just the way I learned. That's what we did. It was a little bit of a different time. This is 10 plus years ago, like 11 years ago. And that's kind of what the market was. And that's what I always did. So it was an unusual position for me to be in, arguing what we were offering out from a buyer side commission perspective, because I kind of agreed with we should be asking for more and putting out more. But the circumstance was we were dealing with an investor who was from a marketplace where the commissions were lower, is the honest truth. Like they were, it was a little bit more like of an inner city marketplace. And the commissions, the general commission, I know commissions are always negotiable, but the commissions were lower, and then they did an investment in a different area. And they expected to do the same rates. And ultimately, like that's where the issue came into play. It was like, well, wait a second, that's not what we do in this area. And so it became this back and forth, and I'm very much of the mindset that like, you and I could fiercely disagree with one another, but I'm still gonna listen to what you have to say and try to learn from it. And that was what took place. So we basically went back and forth, and there were some learnings that I got out of the discussion. And what it did was it forced me to think differently about, even looking at commission. And I'm glad that I did, is the honest truth. So I think that there's a lot of really strong takeaways here. Welcome. There's some really strong takeaways and some aha moments that I guarantee you probably never even thought about. So thank you guys as always for coming. I'm going to start with a quote. What you are aware of, you are in control of. What you are not aware of is in control of you. How often do we walk into a seller's house and we're like pumped to get this listing, and a seller says, well, I interviewed all these other agents and they came in at 4%. And you're like, ooh, like, I didn't expect them to say that. But the reality is like the reason why you would even feel a certain way related to that is either you don't understand your value proposition, or you don't understand that they'll tell you whatever it is that they need to tell you to try to get a better price. And when you start looking at the actual numbers and start doing some research, you start to become in control of what is actually, is out there. Like of that information, you're in control of your own destiny. If you never look at it, you're not. And you just fall mercy to whatever these people tell you. So what I don't want this to become is I don't want this to be a session that you think that I'm talking about service. This is not about a lack of service. And I think sometimes people feel as though, when we treat real estate as a business and not just, as a lot of times we always feel like we got to put our clients first, and like it's such a client-facing business. We're always trying to help our clients. We're always trying to do right by these people. I'm not contradicting that at all. I always want to treat people like people, not as numbers. That's not how I operate. It's always about them first. But just because you're giving them, white glove service, so to speak, doesn't mean that you can't charge what you deserve to charge. Like, ultimately, you run a business, and we have to treat it as such. So this conversation is more about the business of real estate and how to look at it from a business perspective, and it doesn't contradict the fact that we have to do right by people. So I wanted to preface this conversation with that because to me, it's crucially important. I want to start with an example. Tommy the tenant. So Tommy the tenant has a budget of $1,500 and wants to see 65 apartments. I hear a lot of people laughing, obviously. So, bad decision. It's just a bad decision. Like, now, Tommy the tenant could be the nicest person in the history of time. It's irrelevant. It's a bad decision because it doesn't make business sense. Now, why does it not make business sense? And I know some of you are like, I don't need to hear all this. It's so basic. But I want you to think about it. Like, Tommy's commission is going to be essentially $750. Like, minus an MLS fee, plus the split, plus taxes, plus gas, you're going to make about $300. That's $15 an hour if you're showing approximately 20 hours worth of work for 65 listings. It doesn't make business sense. Why does it not make business sense? Because some of you in here, depending on what your time is worth, you may say, like, I'll take the $15 an hour. All right, like, I understand that. I'm not, different people are at different levels in their career. I completely respect that. Here's the problem. Tommy's commission is not guaranteed. McDonald's is guaranteed. Seriously. You can make $15 an hour by working at McDonald's, and it's guaranteed payment. So even if you're in a stage in your career where your time is not as valuable as the next person, the person sitting next to you, you still have to treat it like a business. This still makes more sense because this is guaranteed money. I'm sure they give some form of benefits and workers' comp and all that other stuff. You don't get any of that working with Tommy the tenant. So you have to be smart about how you approach this.
You probably get some compliments.
Probably get some compliments. Tommy might be really happy at the end of the day, but is it a smart business decision? I don't think so. Now, here's the difference. We'll go back to that white, glove service. I'm not telling you not to work with Tommy. Work with Tommy all you want, but set a reasonable expectation on what that's going to look like. Have a conversation with Tommy and say, listen, here's what this is going to do. When I work with a tenant, here's what I need up front. I need, just know it's going to be 1 month's rent, 1 month in commission, 1.5 months for security deposit. I'm going to need an NTN report. You're going to have, employment verification essentially. And here's the thing, like, I can't show you a million properties. We're going to have a quick conversation about what makes sense for your needs. I'm going to show you these 3 properties. You're going to make a decision. Now, if Tommy doesn't want to work within those confines, okay. He's not the right tenant for you or a client for you. So I understand that there's reasons that you make decisions to work with people and give them a little bit more leniency. I'm not saying be a jerk, but you just have to look at it from a business perspective. Example number 2, let's say and this is out of real estate. This has nothing to do with real estate, this is general business. You pick up the phone and you call a contractor. And you say to her, hey, listen, I really need you to redo my kitchen. I want to redo my kitchen. I wanted to put an extension off the back of the house. And I'm going to have to tear down all these walls and do all this work. How much are you going to charge me? And she gets quiet. You say, well, how much? I need to know how much it's going to cost. Well, it's ridiculous to put somebody in that position. How the hell does she know what she's going to charge you? She has no idea what she's going to charge you. Why does she not know? Well, because she hasn't seen the plans. She has no idea what you're trying to build. You're just telling her some blanket statement over the phone. She didn't do measurements. She didn't go out there and figure out how much the materials are going to cost. She didn't figure out what's the difficulty of the job. Is it an easy job? Is it a hard job? Am I prepared for this job? She doesn't know how much time it's going to take to actually do the work. Has no idea. She doesn't know, is there craftsmanship? Is there a true skill involved in getting that done? Has no idea. That's not something that how do you know that over the phone? And she doesn't know who she's dealing with. That's probably the most important part. Am I dealing with a maniac who's going to drive me crazy in the course of this construction project? Or am I dealing with somebody who's really nice to deal with, who I want to work with? It's an amicable relationship. They're going to get me more business and all this other stuff. All of these things go into how she's going to charge that, how she's going to put a number on that deal. So why do we get phone calls from a seller that says, I'm thinking about listing with you. How much do you charge me? Why would you answer that over the phone? I would never answer that over the phone. I would say, well, it depends. Well, what do you mean it depends? Honestly, I have no idea what what the goal is. What are you trying to achieve? Like, are you trying to sell your house for top dollar? Are you trying to sell your house in the fastest amount of time? Do you have an $8 million house? Do you have a $50,000 house? Because quite frankly, it's gonna cost me a whole lot more in marketing to market that $8 million house, and it's gonna take more time, and there's so many more different challenges than maybe that $50,000 house. I need to know these things. Do I have to have some special expertise involved? Is it gonna be a short sale? Do I need to know that I'm gonna be going back and forth with the bank 100 times over? Because I would like to know that. By the way, what's your time frame in terms of preparing the house? Because I have no idea how much time and effort I'm gonna put into this house. Like, we don't know any of those things. We also don't know, is this somebody that I wanna work with? Is this a seller? Like, some of us are like, it's a seller, I wanna work with them. Like, I don't feel that way. I mean, there are agents that have tried to join our office where I'm like, no way, no way. Like, because I don't wanna sit across from you for long periods of time. Like, I mean, that's the God's honest truth. Like, I just know that like misery loves company, you're a miserable individual, and I don't want that in my life. You have to feel the exact same way about dealing with a seller. Is every seller the right seller for you? No. Everybody in this room, I clearly want to work with you. So I've welcomed you here. But the point is like, you know, that's the truth of it. Like, you have to define what your business looks like. And that to me is like, those are the standards. I would never put a price on something. Years ago, I'll tell you a quick story. It's pretty funny. I had a top producer this is before I even got to Maplewood. They had an agreement in place to come to our office. When I came in, I put a halt to it. I said, wait. I said, I'm not making any decisions on that until I sit down with that person and decide if this is the right move. I made a very conscious decision after sitting down with that person that this is not the right move. And so I went back to the president of Coldwell Banker at the time and I said, I don't want them, but they do a lot of business in this area. How do I get around this? And the answer was, well, what do you think we should do? And I said, I think we should just lowball them like crazy to the point where they will not come and say, this is all we could do. And that's what we did. So, and the person didn't come and it all worked out and there was no bad blood in the market, although they were, they were unhappy with me. But it was the smart move to try to know that I didn't want them in the office. You guys could do the exact same thing with a seller. Hey, listen, this seller is going to drive me crazy. I'll charge you 10% to take the listing. I'm serious. I'm not even kidding. Like, if I'm going to work with this maniac, I'm going to get paid to do it. Like, you have to think that way. This is business. So, and for some of you, you just don't take the listing, move on, refer it to the person you don't like down the street. But like, the point is like, you got to do what you have to do to make smart decisions in your business. How many of you think that way? Motivations, headaches, you have to know all of these things before you make a decision on price. Again, it's not a contradiction of service. It goes hand in hand with service. So let's get into the business of real estate for a second. And I want to talk about like, what is the standard for success? All of you in here, you all have different expectations for what success looks like this year or next year or whatever. But I guarantee you, all of you probably share in what I'm about to say. And I believe that the standard for success in real estate is a very simple one. Better than yesterday. You want to make more money than you made last year. Like, I feel like everybody feels that way. I feel that way. Everybody in life feels that way. Nobody wants to go backwards. You don't want to make less money than you did. You want to make more money than you did last year. And we all are consistent on that approach. So let's talk about like some of the things that will help you achieve that. So first of all, how do you make more money selling real estate? And this picture is very intentional because there are levers to this business that we pull. And if you understand these levers, and it's not what you think it is. We're not talking about prospecting. Although prospecting plays a tremendous role in what I'm about to talk about. But this is not about like the odds and ends of how to market yourself. This is like the actual levers on like what controls the money side of this business. So the first thing is units. How many units, how many houses do you sell a year? That to me is the most important lever out of all. But I'm going to show you how there's another lever that impacts this greatly. So from a unit perspective, let's talk about the marketplace in terms of units. How many homes sold in Essex County? I don't have obviously 2023 numbers because 2023 is still going on, but I went back to 2021 and 2022. So how many units have traded in all of Essex County? In 2021, 5,419. Good number. In 2022, 4,523. That number dropped significantly. That has absolutely nothing to do with who is good at selling houses, who is not good at selling houses. It has nothing to do with any of that. That's just the overall opportunity in the marketplace. The opportunity is down. It's down 16.5% to be exact. You could do the exact same thing that you were doing in 2021, in 2022, and if you stay true to the market, your business is down by 17%. Let's round up. Think about that. You didn't do anything wrong. You did nothing wrong. It's the same situation. So, what about, we're just going to go through a couple counties. Union County. In 2021, 5166, 2022, 4139, down almost 20%. You didn't do anything wrong, same thing. Morris County, 2021, almost 6,000. 2022, 4679, down 22% in Morris County. Somerset County, 2021, 3433. 2022, 2883, down 16%. Notice a trend here? Does this sound good for like, oh, the units are where I'm going to make up like my money in this marketplace? No. It's hard as hell to do units in this marketplace. And if your expectation is that you're going to do more units today than you did a year ago, well, then you better be doing something different, because I can't even tell you, I've had 100 conversations in the past few months alone where people are like, I don't understand, like my business is not what it was, like, and I'm trying to build and all this other stuff, but they're doing the same exact things that they were doing a year ago with the expectation that their business is going to remain the same. Everybody's business is down. Every single person that's doing business in these 4 counties that I just outlined, your business is down. There's less opportunity in the marketplace. It's not your fault. It's not a broker's fault. It's not a brokerage's fault. It's not anybody's fault. It's the market. That's what happens. So how do we fix that? How do we make it so you still make the same or more money? First of all, a rising tide lifts all boats. This is probably one of the worst slides that I'm going to bring up to you, but we are not in high tide. We are in low tide. We're in low tide. I'm hoping that it doesn't go lower. Serious. Why are we in low tide? Because early 2023 sales are down 33% year over year. That's the MLS as a whole, Garden State MLS as a whole. So we're talking about being like down like 15 to 20%, 22% in Morris County, I think was the highest, like from 2021 to 2022. Well, we're down another 33% beyond that. Now maybe those numbers turn around. This is very early in the year, so I'm not saying it's going to stick to those numbers, but units are not your friend right this second. That's not where you're going to get all these wins. I would love for you to, and if you're getting wins in terms of the units, if your units are up right now, it means you're probably doing something really right, so keep doing it. And there are some people in here that, Marvin, I'll point you out. You had your best year ever last year. You killed it unit-wise, congratulations. But Marvin prospects his ass off, like nonstop, knocking on doors, sending letters, doing a million other things. Like he does more than the average person when it comes to prospecting. So it's not impossible. I'm not trying to say like be doom and gloom here. It's hard. And it's really hard to do the same things and get the same results in a down market. Excuse me. All right. Lever number 2, average sales price. Here's the flip side of that equation, which is really interesting because this is unusual. Usually when you have less homes selling and all that stuff, it usually is tied to price. But it's not tied to price today. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Average sales price in Essex County, 2021, 551,000. 2022, 585, up 6%. Sellers are doing better. All right, what about Union County? I don't know why I can't read. $475,000. 2022, 515, up 8%, 8.4%. Morris County, 560, up to 610, up almost 9%. Somerset County, 580, 600, up 3%, 3.4%. So pretty simple if you think about it. Units are way down. It's not impacting sellers in the slightest bit. In fact, it's helping sellers. Average sales price year to date, up 2% for the MLS. So not only did they get the benefits of what happened in the last year, but they also got the benefits of this early market because it's still rising according to the MLS. Sellers are getting paid. This is not a situation where you should be feeling bad for sellers in the slightest bit, because they're making a lot more money than they were a year ago or 2 years ago. The average Essex County seller is making 8.1% more since 2021. I know you can't see it, I apologize for the color. That's $44,631 more. Almost $50,000 more that they're making today than a year ago, or a year and a half ago, let's call it. Like, they're doing really well in today's market. So the question that I asked myself when I read through all this is a simple one, and it's basically, does a higher average sales price balance out the units that have dropped? Because ultimately, we get paid on the balance between those things. When a seller does really well, great, we're tied to them, we're a united front. So does the amount that we're getting in commission balance out based on that average sales price? Any takers? No? Volume. That's the answer to this equation, is volume. Units times average sales price is volume. So that's what we look at. That's what you guys get paid off of, is volume. All right. So if you look at Essex County, and I did all the formulas for you, and you balance out average sales price plus the amount of units that have traded, down 11% year over year. In Union County, down 13%. In Morris County, down 15%. In Somerset, down 13%. So that means this is literally your income. Like this with the next thing that I'm going to talk about. But this is what you get paid off of. Your total volume is what you get paid off of. The amount of opportunity you have to make money has dropped by 11% in Essex County. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. So the answer to that question is a resounding no. It's not a good marketplace in terms of making more money from when you look at units, sales price, and volume. So fortunately, those are not the only levers. We're going to talk about that in a second. The fourth lever is market share. So what does market share represent? It's like, okay, there's a certain amount of houses. There are less units in the market. Can I get more of those units? Can I get a bigger percentage? The problem with market share is it's very misleading. So it's important, but it's not always tied to income. Why is it not always tied to income? Very simple. I'm just going to give you an example of that. If you sell 3 houses out of 10, you have 30% market share. If you sell 2 houses out of 5, you have 40% market share. You could grow your market share and sell less houses than you did previously. So that's not a great indication on how to make more money in real estate. I know we all love to talk about it. Here's the one shining light when it comes to market share. Market share, if you grow your market share in down markets, the goal and the hope and usually the reality is you can maintain higher market share when the market starts to come out of down markets. In which case now that grows, and if you still maintain that same market share, your business has grown substantially. That takes time. That's not a this thing to make money. So you have to understand, like, although I love market share and I'm going to speak to it in a second, the reality is like it's not the lever that we're pulling in today's market to put more money in your pocket. So building market share is hard. Units and volume are down. What are you doing to outpace the market? That's what I talked about before. That's not the goal of this exercise. We're not going to talk about like prospecting and all that. But you just have to get it in your head that if you don't do things differently today than you did a year ago or 2 years ago, you're going to be in trouble because your business is going to go down, no fault of yours. The fifth one, this is the whole point of this conversation, is commission. So when you talk about commission, let's talk about the market. First of all, are your expenses higher or lower than they were a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Higher? I hear you saying that loud and clear. Of course they're higher. Of course they are higher. Like everybody in here who has any expenses in real estate should be saying higher. Why? It's very simple. The price of bananas are more expensive. The price of gas is more expensive. We've had inflation. Like everybody's expenses are higher right now because money is more expensive than it was a year ago. So even if the vendors that you're working with charge you the exact same amount of money, it still costs you more money because money is more expensive today than it was a year ago. And it was 2 years ago. It's a lot more expensive. It's almost triple the price. So when you think about it that way, like your expenses are sky high. If you think about like, is the market easier or harder than it was a year ago? I think this is the hardest market I've ever seen in my career. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because we have crazy issues in terms of the amount of inventory that's on the market. We have very low inventory, historically low inventory. There's no houses to sell people. We have issues with inflation right now. I think that consumer confidence is teetering. Like, we have the highest demand that we've ever had in the history of our country just because of the amount of millennials that are in their buying prime. Like, we have a lot of weird things going on. Like, obviously, you have a war going on in Ukraine that has issues when it comes to the economy. We have supply chain issues that are killing things like in terms of materials. There's so many weird things like swirling around this environment right now. It's not an easy time to sell real estate. Second thing, sorry, not for sale. This is being driven off of that. Not enough houses, we just talked about that. And inflation is booming and probably gonna get worse because, I don't think inflation's gonna get worse, excuse me. I think interest rates are gonna get worse because the Fed is kind of like, seems to be hinting in that direction. All right, so all of that said, like when we sit down with a seller, are the sellers in a worse place? No, not at all. The sellers are in a better place than they've ever been in the history of time because there's no inventory on the marketplace and houses are selling, statistically speaking, for 8%, 9% more than they were a year ago. And a year ago, we would argue that it was the best market we've ever seen. And the year before that, we were like, it's the best market we've ever seen. And prices have continued to do this since that point. So, the average Essex County seller is making 8.1% more since 2021. The average Essex County realtor is making 11% less. Us and our clients are going in opposite directions in terms of money in our pocket. That's the God's honest truth. Like, this is like statistically accurate. Here's the crazy thing that happens, and this is like the spark, so to speak, that happens when the market does what it's doing. I want to run you through the domino effect. Money, all of your money and the whole marketplace's money is down. When that happens, people get desperate because people are like, oh my God, agents are like, I need to make money. I have to figure out how to do this. Like, I can't go broke. I got bills to pay. So I'm going to do whatever it takes to get more listings or get more business or whatever. So they drop their commission, which in turn drops more of their money. That's the cycle that we're dealing with right now. That's why we're having this conversation, because this is not a smart move. In fact, it's really counterintuitive. Like, why would we do that? Why would we charge less because we're making less? Like, it doesn't make any business sense whatsoever. But counterintuitive, other words, unreasonable, illogical, reasonless, senseless, untenable, nonsensical, faulty, implausible, absurd. I thought that kind of fit for this. So the whole point of it is like, it doesn't make any business sense. Nobody who is running any other business outside of real estate would do that. But we fall victim to this crap because like we have to like try to keep up. Now, why do we do that? The reason is like, I want you to think of this contractor for a second before we get into who we are. If lumber prices went up, which they did very much so, I know they've come down, but when lumber prices skyrocketed, did the cost of their services go up or down? It went way up. Like, that's why people weren't doing as many like, renovations and all that stuff, because lumber prices were so expensive, material prices were so expensive, and contractors were like, well, I'm passing that to the consumer, because that's what people do when prices are more expensive for them. So the next piece of it is, when obviously prices go up. So when the difficulty of the job goes up, or when the craftsmanship and the skill it takes to achieve that job go up, do they charge more or less? Charge more, of course. Up, up, up. Like, oh, you need me to not hire day laborers, you need me to hire a craftsman to do this work, cost you more money. Like, here's the upcharge for that. Everybody deals with the same thing. That's just the way of the world. Same thing when it comes to the plans and all that stuff. When you are dealing with a contractor, everything shoots that way. When their expenses or their skill set or any of that, their difficulty level goes up, it all goes in that direction. Why are we doing the opposite? It doesn't make any business sense. Nobody does that in the real world. Outside of real estate, we don't operate that way. So I want you to imagine something. And this is like, just kind of take it out of the context. I like to tell some stories. So I'm running for president, and my platform is very simple. My plan is I'm going to raise your taxes by 28%. Do I have your vote? Hell no. No. Of course not. Like, why would you give me your vote? Like, that's a silly thing to say. That's why what president has ever got up on a pulpit or whatever and stage and said, I'm going to raise taxes? Even if they're going to raise taxes, they don't tell you they're going to raise taxes. Because you just know that it's like the easiest way in the world to not get your votes. Give you another one. This adjustable rate mortgage will increase by 28% in year 2. Like, who's signing that loan? Nobody. You're not going to sign that loan. Like, you got to be out of your mind. No. Number 3, times are tough. We need to decrease your split by 28%. Everybody okay with that? No? Of course not. It's a ridiculous position to take. Seller, how much do you charge? Agent, I charge 5%. Does that not happen all the time? It happens all the time. You guys get it. So here's the thing. Many of you will walk into a listing and will be like, 5%. It just like spits off your tongue. But none of you would vote for me for president, and none of you would be okay with a 28% rate change in terms of your mortgage, and none of you would be okay with half the, what is it? I don't even remember what the other example was. Oh, me cutting your split by 28%. Not one person would be okay with those things. But we say 5% like it spits off like water. Why? That's exactly what that represents to you. So let's go through the numbers. Our average sales price is $600,000. By the way, I sent this email out on 3/8. At 3.5%, you make $21,000. As you go down the line here, at 2.5%, so that's 5% essentially, 2.5 out, 2.5 in, it goes down to $15,000. That's a 28% reduction. You're doing it to yourselves. Like, every single time we reduce our commissions from 6% to 5%, you just took a 28% cut in your income. 28%. Think about that. None of you would be okay with that if I said to you, I'm going to drop your split by 28%. None of you would be okay with 28% more in taxes, and none of you would be okay with a 28% rise in interest rates. No one in this room, but you do it to yourself.
Well,
please.
I'm going to assume the alternative is they give it to someone who will.
We're getting there.
And if you do that over and over and over again, you affect your long-term market share.
I'm so glad you're teeing me up right now.
So aren't they better to take it lower and stay visible
We're
in the community?
We're going there right now.
That way when you well, you have to start.
Right. I think Michael's
But
saying,
you don't want to leave the
don't
room.
go in and say, yeah, 5%. I mean, start somewhere else. And then, I know what you're saying. I think we've all been there. We don't want to lose it. But to start there.
I promise you, just hang with me. I promise you, just hang with me. All right. So all of these things don't make sense, is where I'm going with this. Negotiation skills, that is literally at the heart of our business. That's at the heart of our business. And there's really only, I'm not saying it's the only thing, but like with very little exception, there's only one thing that you're negotiating for yourselves, and that's commission. Like, for the most part, there's some things, maybe some expenses, I understand that, but like 90% of you in here, the only thing that you ever get asked to negotiate for yourself is how much you charge a seller. That's the one point of negotiation for you. And some of you just come in and just say, I charge 5% like this, like that's it. So let's talk about like why maybe that doesn't make sense. And I'm glad I'm not giving you a hard time. I'm really happy that I would love you to fight me on this. So the truth of it is like, I'm not expecting your businesses to go in the toilet because you're like losing the competition. But remember how I started? It's like, you don't know what you don't know sometimes. Like you have no control over it unless you know what you're dealing with. So we're gonna get into that. So number 4, what do you charge? This is a visual explanation, and I know some of these things are basic and I'm saying it in different ways, but people learn in different ways. So I want you to like just see it in different ways so you really internalize it. What do you charge? So this is a ruler of 6%. The buyer's agent's getting 2.5%. You and Coldwell Banker together are getting 2.5. The 1% is up in the air between you and a seller. That's essentially the equation. Every single time, with little exception, that's the equation. If you actually look at what you get paid, on average, this is how much of that you're getting paid. This is how much Coldwell Banker is getting paid and how much we're paying to a franchise. This is how much of the money that you're getting paid, just pulling out some of the marketing expenses, generally speaking. So you're really left over with this much, and then taxes are taking a percentage of that. So you're effectively getting paid about 1% of that total commission when you really break it down. And that's what you're trading your time for. And that's like pretty straight numbers. There's some exception to that depending on what your split is or depending on what your marketing expenses are or what your taxes are. I get it. But like on average, these numbers hold true. So you're talking about 1% for all the work that it goes to, when you actually walk away with take-home cash that you could go put in your bank or buy a investment property or pay your bills or whatever. So what about the 1% difference from 5 to 6%? The difference of taking a listing at 2.5 equates to 28%, which I just talked about. At our average sales price, that's $6,000 a deal. Like, that's real numbers, $6,000 a deal. Most of that money is yours. Like, the majority of it, because this is after expenses. So, yes, you have to pay taxes, and yes, there's some split, but the majority of that $6,000 is yours. And what I'm going to look at, what I want you to think about is total GCI, gross commission income. So gross commission income, the average agent sold, we're a little bit down because we brought a bunch of people in, recruiting wise. We used to, last year we were at 10 homes per agent. We're about 8 homes per agent. On average, we sell 8 houses a year per agent. So 8 homes an agent, average sales price $600,000. At 2.5%, that's $120,000. The average agent in our office brings in $120,000. At 2.75%, it equates to $132,000. At 3.5, it equates to $168,000. Going from 5% to 6% is another $48,000 a year on average per agent. It's a lot of money. It's not like chump change. Now multiply that times, let's say you're in real estate for 10 years. All right, that's $480,000 over a 10-year period. That's a ton of money. Now I realize that, are you going to get 6% on every deal? Of course not. I get that. I'm not being unreasonable with that expectation. But you're definitely not going to get 6% if you don't ask for it. So let's talk about that and go into a little greater. This is the reason 6%, you would ask for it every single time without exception. You would ask for 8% if you knew you could get it every time. If the standard in the industry, I know that's illegal to say when we talk about commissions, but if the standard in the marketplace in the industry was 10% and you were able to ask for 8% and it was normal, 8% would just spit off your tongue like it was water. But the standard in our industry is 6% and going to 5 is more normal for you, so you feel comfortable with it. It's about fear. That's all it is. You don't want to lose that piece of business. So the reason you have that fear in most instances is because you don't know the actual stats behind it. And if I teach you the stats, I'm thinking that might help you. So low tide, you're afraid of the competition. We're afraid of people being desperate and coming in with lower deals than you. Don't be scared. So I want to tell you about this is just a fun story. My firstborn, Angelina, when she was, I don't know, she might have been 1 or 2 years old, whatever it was, we were like, oh, what would be fun? Let's do a bubble bath. And she's gonna love this. She'll play with the bubbles and all that stuff. She was deathly afraid of the bubbles. No! Would not, was literally ready to punch me in the head to get away from these bubbles. She had no idea what they were. And I think that it was just such a perfect microcosm for life, because what you don't know, you're afraid of. And that's part of the problem that exists here. So let's talk about this. This is a GOAT. For those of you who don't know the acronym, greatest of all time, I am with Coldwell Banker for a reason. I strongly believe that we're the best real estate company in the industry, bar none. I don't think we're even close. We do so many things that people don't even realize to help our clients and help our agents build business. There's so many facets to this. I really believe this. You need to believe it. So let's talk about actual numbers here for a second, because I think sometimes this all gets lost in the bullshit that people spew out like in marketing, like, oh, so-and-so did such and such. This is real numbers. So real numbers, if you look at Christie's sold 964 houses in New Jersey last year. If you look at Keller Williams Realty, this is their largest franchise. These are all brokerages. So the largest franchise of Keller Williams sold 987. Sotheby's, Prominent Properties, the largest Sotheby's, sold 1405. Remax Select, the largest Remax, sold 1554. Compass sold 2496. Berkshire Hathaway sold 2652. That's the largest Berkshire Hathaway. EXP sold 5,997. Weichert sold 10,238. Anybody afraid of Weichert in here? No. You should be, if you look at this. Like, all these other competitors are getting dwarfed by Weichert in terms of how much they sell. Not one person in here probably feels that way at all about Weichert, with all due respect.
Is this just north of New Jersey?
This is New Jersey. This is New Jersey.
Oh, but I don't think it's the largest.
13,282 homes.
This is all Garden State.
This is the state of New Jersey. State of New Jersey. Look at how dominant we are compared to everybody else in the marketplace. It's not even close. And by the way, these are the biggest brokerages in the industry in New Jersey. So it's not like I'm just taking like some like, oh, little small companies here or there to show us that we're bigger than them. We are destroying everybody else when it comes to how many houses we sell. It's not even close. If you add up all of these companies together, we sell more houses. That's Sotheby's, Compass, Remax, Keller Williams Realty, EXP. We sell more houses than every single one of them together in New Jersey. Think about that. We are the best. It's not even close. We blow them out of the water. So if you go in thinking like, oh, I don't know, this company's tough to compete against, why don't you bring this with you? Like, it's not close. Like, we have a dominant market share. And the thing is, I know sometimes people think like, well, why does that matter? Well, what matters is, are people only coming from Maplewood, New Jersey to buy in Maplewood, New Jersey? No. Like, we overlap. Do you guys sell in Montclair? Do you sell in Short Hills? Do you sell in Summit? Do you sell in Westfield? Do you sell in all these different markets? Of course you would. Like, and we have agents in all of these markets that are dominating. Now, the question, I appreciate you asking me, was, all right, well, is this all of New Jersey? Is this north of New Jersey? Well, let's get local. Like, in Essex County, dominate. It's not even close. This is us, Weichert, Compass, Keller Williams, EXP, domination in Essex County. In Union County, it's even worse. Completely destroying all of our competitors in these counties. Nobody sells anywhere close to as much real estate as we do. Not debatable. In Morris County, it's a little bit debatable. Sorry. But we're still winning. And by the way, in Morris County, Morris County is Weichert's stronghold. Like, in anywhere in the country, where is their number one market? Morris County. We sell more houses than them in their number one marketplace. So it's not close. We have to start going in there with some confidence, and you have to go in there with stats related to it. What else do I have? Somerset County, blow everybody else out of the water. So when it comes to like actual marketing, I've recruited most of the people in this room, like at one point or another. And when I sit down and I have these conversations when I'm bringing somebody over from another company, one of the questions that I tend to ask is, what do you do when you sit down with a listing, or with a seller rather, as a listing agent? What do you do to actually like sell the house? And I get a lot of bad answers. Like, I get a lot of really bad answers is the truth of it. It's like, well, I put it on the MLS and it shoots out to Zillow, and it's like, sometimes I do just listed and just sold cards, and I definitely put it on Facebook and Instagram. And I'm like, awesome. Like, well, look at what we do. We do a million different things. If you're not, I don't care if you use Listing Concierge or not. Quite frankly, Listing Concierge costs me money every single time you use it. So I'm not like pushing this by any means, but if you don't use Listing Concierge, then find a suitable alternative in your world that's going to actually market the property. Because that's one of the reasons we have the results that we have. On a global luxury level, nobody sells, I didn't bring the stats up, but I could bring them to you if need be. Nobody sells more $1 million houses across the country than we do, across the state than we do. We just dominate when it comes to luxury. Like, so, there are so many different ways to look at the market, but how about results? Like from a results perspective, we blow our competitors out of the water. And like, yes, you're gonna have one pocket. I remember in Summit for years and years and years, we used to battle against Lois Schneider. Like Lois Schneider was like this dominant force in Summit. You go to Maplewood, nobody even heard of them. Like, yes, you're gonna have pockets of competition where it's a little bit more fierce than others. Like in Essex County is the #1 place in the state of New Jersey for Compass. Hands down, it's not even close. Like we beat them like by a good margin. Like there's, it doesn't matter where you go, there's gonna be competitors, but like you have to understand like what, you gotta give context to a seller is what I'm trying to tell you. Number 6, this to me is one of the most important slides I'm about to show you. If you increase your listing side commission by 0.5%, so it's not even 6%, if you go from 5% to 5.5%, it reverses all of the negativity that I said before. We talked about like, okay, you're down 11% in volume. All right, well, if you get an extra 0.5%, you're up 6% on income. It literally reverses the market. Same thing on 4% in Union County, 2%, 4%. It doesn't matter the county. All you have to get is 3% on the list side, and it automatically reverses the down unit count and the down total volume. Think about that. Like, there are a lot of things that we try to do in our business to build production. Half of us like stand on our head and spin to try to like prospect and grow our business and everything else. One simple fix, and it fixes your numbers overnight. There's nothing that I could teach you or do for you that will help you build more income than that. Like that's the #1 thing that exists out there is just, and by the way, here's the craziest part. It's not even hurting your seller because your seller's making 8% more than they were a year ago. So if they get another 0.5% to you, they're still making 7.5% more than they were. So let's talk about some life hacks because this gets at the heart of Mary's question.
I do have another.
Please. Let's see if I got that one too.
So Coldwell Banker clearly dominates in a market where units are down. So does Coldwell Banker clearly dominate on the listing side or representing the buying side?
It's a great question. Both is the answer, but more so on the listing side.
Really?
Correct. Like significantly more so. It's probably 60-40. But yeah, it's a good answer. And just so you know, those numbers are down like the rest of the market. So like our lead was actually like higher a year ago just based on sheer numbers because we're just like, we represent a higher percentage of the overall market. So, I mean, the point is like, it's very much on the listing side compared to the seller, compared to the buyer side, but it's not only, it's on both is really the answer.
It has to be somewhat close, only because you don't have the same.
I think it's 60-40.
years ago or 2 years ago.
I really think it's 60-40, like, is the answer. So good question. So please.
I think it's wonderful that we're all here hearing it, and I think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
We're sitting across the table in real life situations. That's not what we're hearing. So we'll do our part, but I strongly suggest that Coldwell Banker does a hell of a lot better job than what they're doing, telling the competition in the world how great or our area what they're doing, and really
Yeah.
show these stats. Because what happens is Keller Williams and Compass, they use their stats different than you use yours. So
Mm-hmm.
it's all how you manipulate the numbers.
Yeah.
But this is factual.
This is straight from the MLS, so it's definitely factual. Hold on one second. Yeah, I'll get you all these slides. That's not a problem. I mean, I'll get right to your question. 1 second.
Put it on the back of the difference.
Yeah.
That the public sees, not just the realtors, because we're up against
It's
it.
funny you should say that because I got to do my matters ad today. All right. I'm very late. Go ahead.
You typically always get 6%, but I would say to seller too, this is the first thing I'm negotiating for you.
Yeah.
You know, if you have success there, you're gonna try to get in, the best price, the best buyer, the best.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Michael, can you tell me a little about your thoughts on reducing the buy side for this one?
You're teeing me up perfectly, but give me like 5 minutes, okay? I promise you. So here's what I did, because I expected, actually, you guys are pretty mild compared to what I thought I was gonna get. Because it's a sensitive topic, is the honest truth. Like what you charge and what you charge people, it's always a sensitive topic. And I think that it's very easy for me to sit up here and say, just do it, it's not a hard time. It's hard, this is not easy. But it's really hard when you're not prepared. It's really hard when you don't have some ammunition behind you. So I'm going to get into some really, specific things that will help you win this argument. And that's what the rest of this meeting is for, okay? So that shouldn't even be an argument if you present it the right way. That's probably the better way of saying it. So some life hacks. A, this to me is the easiest way to get more if you can't get more. In the event the subject property sells for more than 5% over the listing price, this listing agreement reverts to full fee of 6%. Why would somebody not sign this? You're basically putting yourselves in alignment with the seller. You're saying, hey, listen, if I understand you want to negotiate with me, I get it. But here's the thing. If I do everything that I say I'm going to do, and it leads to significantly more money to you, 5% over the asking price, if it's $1 million house, that's 50 grand. If I get you 50 grand over what I'm saying, you're not going to be willing to pay me a little bit more, pay me my full fee? Like, I'm earning it. Like, that's earned money. Like, I'm doing my job and then some. I have never in my entire life, God bless you, heard a seller say no to this, because they want you to be incentivized to go all out and get them top dollar. So, please.
They may even go more than 6.
Correct. By the way, this is just a placeholder. So it doesn't have to be 5%. It could be 3%. It could be 1%. Hold on one second, Deb. The second thing is you can put whatever percentage you want here. And some people do. Like, I've seen 10% listings that I signed off on. I'm not saying you should do that or shouldn't do that. I don't really care about that. It's personal. But what I will tell you is you can negotiate this how you see fit, but don't leave this on the table. Because to me, it's such a kicker when we're getting these extreme numbers for our sellers. We're doing everything possible. We're dealing with 25 offers on property, some of you, and I know because a lot of times I get them. And then we're still at 5%. Like, no. Like, we've earned our money and then some. We should be getting full fee. Please, Deb.
I love that. You and I talked about
Yeah.
that before. If we put that on our listings,
Yeah.
we always, my team and I, we always start at 6%.
Yeah.
Work us off that if they can.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. We have to put variable rate on.
Nope.
Yeah,
I'm sorry you can't see this. Not a variable comp because the additional commission will come to you, the listing agent. It's not variable at all. That's a great question. I'm glad I put that in there specifically for that. It is not a variable commission. So you don't have to post it as a variable commission, all that other stuff. You don't have to think about that.
And you put the verbiage right there.
You could put it like literally, I meant like, usually what I would do is 5% asterisk, and then in a margin, write that in. This to me is like the easiest way in the world to potentially get more. If you can't do anything else, you're unwilling to do anything else, please do this. Like, this is like the simple thing. Good? Please.
I don't quite understand. I follow the general idea, but this part about it not being variable comp because the additional commission will go to you, the listing agent?
So the purpose of variable comp is basically to say, like, is there going to be an incentive for a buyer to work with the listing agent versus working with the selling agent? So think of variable commission is, I will list your house for 6%. If I sell it myself, it's 5.5%. Well, now there's a 0.5% difference that the seller saves by going with my buyer versus your buyer. That has to be disclosed. An increase in commission on the listing side does not count as variable commission. It's an increase, not a decrease. Go ahead.
Is the quote full fee, is that compliant?
It's our full fee. It's so no, I'm glad you brought this up. So it's not semantics. Like, in the marketplace, when somebody asks you, and I'm going to get into the technicalities of it. If somebody asks you, what is the going rate on commissions, like in the marketplace? Commissions are always negotiable. Always negotiable. However, Coldwell Banker's full fee is 6%. So the difference is you can charge whatever it is that you want to charge, like as a brokerage, but you can't define that as what the market is charging on average. That doesn't exist. Everything's negotiable. You don't have to negotiate, but everything's negotiable in terms of us versus the next broker. Chris Dixon, did I pass the test?
Mostly.
What I'm saying is correct, but go ahead. So, B, the next step. Chris is a licensing instructor. Tim, I should ask you the same thing. You're good with it? All right. It's true. You are allowed to charge what you want to charge. All right. So B, this goes to your question, David. So, hey, pay attention to this because this is important. This is buyer side commission. Pay attention to this because, first of all, I'm getting off the slide for a second. I know you're taking a picture. I apologize. So I want you to think about this. Every single person in real estate, competitors, they come in and they talk the same stuff, a lot of them. They say, I charge 3%, and you could decide what you want to charge, or I charge 2.5%, or I charge whatever, and you could decide what you want to put out to the buyer side agent in the marketplace. And what does that do? It kind of like takes the skill of negotiation off the table for the listing agent. They don't have to negotiate. They don't have to think about it. They're getting what they want. And then it really just like puts all of the pressure on the seller to make a decision of what they want to put out in the marketplace. And what are they going to do? Inherently, they're going to want to put out less because they're going to want to see if they can get away with it. That's how it works. So the whole point in my mind of negotiating with a seller and representing a seller and trying to get a listing is, how can you be different? How can you tell a different story that educates them, that shows value, that really helps your client? Because that, to me, is more often than not the reason that they're going to go with one person versus the next. This next slide, and it goes directly to what you're asking for, is perfect for that. Take the counter position. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I know that that people will come in here and tell you to reduce the buyer side commission. Let me show you why that makes no sense for you, and the average agent doesn't even do the research to show you what makes the most sense for you and your bottom dollar, your bottom line. 365 days, there's 225 homes that sold in Maplewood for the last year. 36 sellers, 16% of the market offered less than 2.5%. They sold on average for 101% of list price, 20 days on market for a total of $642,000. People that offered 2.5% or more to the buyer side sold on average for 109%. 13 days on market and 839 on average. If this doesn't tell the story not to put out like lower commissions on the buy side, I don't know what does. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, why would you do that? Why? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And like, if you really want to get at like the heart of it, that extra 0.5% to buyer brokers averaged 8% more in terms of your actual asking price. 8% margin difference for 0.5%. Why would you not do that? Why are we negotiating this? Like, every one of us says, well, I don't know, like, do we need to put out 2.5%? Can we put out 2.25%? Can we put out 2%? This is the reason why. It clearly, I don't have to argue it. We don't have to debate it. There is no debate. The marketplace has answered that question for us. It's a difference of 109% versus 101. Like, for 0.5%, why are we not educating our clients on that? And by the way, this is just Maplewood, so the answer that I'm going to get is, well, what about in other markets? In West Orange, 103% for 2.5 or for less than 2.5, 107%. Average days on market, 16, 536 versus 517, 19 days on market. Takes more time to sell, sells it for a lower price and a lower percentage of list to sale price ratio. That's West Orange. What about, by the way, 0.5% equals 4% more in West Orange. In South Orange, 34 sellers, 20% of the market did it. 101%, 989. Now, in fairness, in South Orange, this is going to be a little misleading. I would not present these two numbers. I wouldn't. And it's because what happened in South Orange is the higher price point houses took less in commission. They put out less in commission. That's what drove this. But 101% versus 109%. Like, again, an extra 8% for that 0.5% commission. Like, and it makes complete sense. Like, if you got to show house A or house B, and your buyer is trying to think about buying one versus the other, and you make an extra $6,000 on one versus the other, why wouldn't you want them to buy that house? Even if you're the best agent in the world and you take your mind out of it, on some subconscious level, you're going to want them to buy that house if they could buy it. Like if it's, oh, deciding between them, you're going to want them to buy the house that represents more income. Like that's how the world works.
So at some point, Michael, can you integrate that with the for sale by owner strategy? Because the thought process is that, when you get the for sale by owner to list, they're going to want to come in at a lower percentage. So you show them how much money they're losing as a for sale by owner.
So I actually love this question because I didn't even think about this angle, but this is not the answer to your question that you might be looking for, but this is just me thinking on the fly. I don't think that the argument with for sale by owners is the buyer side commission. If the argument with a for sale by owner is the buyer side commission, then they're not worth going after. Because if they're not willing to pay a buyer side commission, they're completely unrealistic about how the market works, and they're trying to go counter to the market. The argument with a for sale by owner is the listing side commission. Why it makes sense to get exposure for the house and all that goes into that. And it's really, we're talking about the argument of exposure and what that exposure is worth to them, to their bottom line. And it's really not the same exact thing as the buyer side commission. So I don't know if this is the strategy I would use for that. I'm happy to go into a deeper dive on that topic, but this wouldn't be what I would apply it to. Unless you could get them to offer a listing side commission, and then it resorts back to, well, what are we offering buyers? If they want to be cheap on the buyer front, then I would present this. But usually I think for sale by owner is more of getting them to understand the benefit of a listing agent. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So here's the argument that I would make, like the thesis on this point. You can't afford not to pay full fee. Yeah, I understand you think you're saving something. You're not. You're actually costing yourself money. And here's why. Because you're not incentivizing the buying agent public and anybody who's looking in this marketplace. I know we're not supposed to say works with an agent for free on the buyer side, but in theory they do. They're working with an agent, they're not paying that agent, the seller is paying that agent, and they're gonna look at that incentive, and people are incentivized by money. So whether I am that way or not is inconsequential. The marketplace as a whole is very much that way, and it's proven statistically. Any questions about that? Does it make sense? C. Off-market deals. This right here is called permission to show an open listing. If you were to, let's say hypothetically, you had a buyer, I'm going to give you an example. You had a buyer, this is, by the way, before I even get into this example, I want you to think about this. The more deals, this goes to Mary's, you're not going to get 6% on every deal. I understand that. I'm not unreasonable. I'm not naive to that. I've been in real estate, for 20 years almost. And I get that it's always a challenge. Every deal has its own challenges. What I'm trying to do with these hacks are get your listing side commission up in all the places we could get wins. So collectively, if we get them up in a bunch of different ways, your overall average commission that you charge is going to rise. That is the win. It's not a perfect way of winning, but it's a win. So the first thing was get them to understand, and by the way, let me go back to this for a second. This whole thought process on buyer brokers, most people are not going to argue. They're not going to try to. I haven't seen this very much. Maybe you guys have. I haven't. Most people are not trying to pay you less than they're paying buyer brokers. And what I'll find, we'll take it a step further, and this goes back to this thought process. Let me go back to Maplewood for a second. 16% of the market in Maplewood did less than 2.5%. So my question to you guys, it's kind of rhetorical, but I want you to think about it, is for those 16%, do you think that they charged 6% and put out 2%? I don't. I think that what happens more often than not is this is a reflection of the people that are undercutting on commission. They're basically telling the market, we're charging less. That's what they're doing. And so there are exceptions to that rule, but I think that they're few and far between. Now, every person in here, 2.5% or more, they're acknowledging to us they're taking at least 5%, would be my guess. Maybe they're taking 6%, but they're taking at least 5%. So when you walk into a seller's house and the seller says to you, oh, 3 agents said they'll do it for 4%, I'm calling bullshit. And the reason I'm calling bullshit is because statistically speaking, 84% of the market is 5% or up. 84%. Like, what is the odds that 3 other agents came in and said 4%? Very unlikely. Like, it means that seller's probably telling you a story to try to get you down. So we're going to talk about that in a second, but I just want you to think about those numbers. So when you go into, off-market properties, the easiest example is I have a buyer who really wants to buy. They go in and they make an offer on a let's just say it's a multiple offer situation. There's 5 offers on the property. They don't get the house. Now you say, do you really want to live in this neighborhood? Yes, this is the neighborhood I want to live in. I love this street. This is where I want to be, blah, 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 blah. So what do? You put out, call around the neighborhood. You put out, letters like, I have a buyer who's in love with your neighborhood. Like, tell me if you want to sell and all that other stuff. You do all the legwork and you get somebody who raises their hand. The worst thing in the world that you could do is run back to your buyer and be like, you won't believe it. Somebody answered my letter. Let's go see it. That's terrible. It's like a terrible, terrible decision. You don't have an agreement signed with that seller, which means that if your buyer, they could be the nicest person in the world, but money tends to cloud niceties. So if your buyer finds out about this and says, yeah, they want to sell their house, great. They can cut you out of the deal like this. You have no leverage whatsoever. So not only does it screw you up to potentially get cut out completely, but it screws you up one step further. It screws you up with your ability to actually negotiate for a full fee. Because here's the craziest thing. If you go to that seller says, yeah, I got your letter and I'm actually interested in selling. Like, what do you have in mind? I would say, awesome. I have to come preview the house. I want to come see the house for my buyer. Well, no, why don't you just bring your buyer here? That's not how I operate. I have to come see it because I don't waste my client's time. I don't know if this house is going to be right for them. I want to see the house. If it was on the MLS, I would look at it online. I'd be able to see the pictures. I'd be able to see if it makes the most sense. I can't do that with a house that I haven't been inside. We have to sit down. I have to go through it and just get an understanding for what it is that I'm selling. Great. Can I come see it? Awesome. You go there. I'm bringing this form. It's not a listing agreement. If they want to list their house, great. List their house. You want to get an exclusive? Great. It's best case scenario is MLS. Next best case scenario is exclusive. The last thing on that list is an open showing, open listing agreement. I use this all the time when I was in sales because it's a great way to get somebody to say yes to allowing you to show the house and knowing that you're going to get paid off of it without necessarily listing the property. A lot of people don't want to list the property. I could send any one of you guys this list. It came from Gary Large, by the way. I freaking love him. God rest his soul. So he was the one who passed this along to me years ago. So when you go after this property, let's just say we're going to make up numbers. The seller says, I want $1 million. So I say, awesome. That's what you want? All right. So if I get my buyers to come in and buy your house for $1,060,000, you're okay with paying me 6%, correct? And they say, well, no, I'm not going to pay you 6%. Well, you said you want to net $1 million. So if I get you $1 million and I get paid on top of that, you're okay with that? Ultimately, I'm getting you what you want. Well, no, I don't want to pay 6%. You're not doing any of the marketing. Well, hold up, Mr. Seller. Here's the situation. I have a buyer who wants to live in this area. You want to sell your house off market without having to think about sweeping yourself out of your house for the next 2 months, without staging, without prepping, without doing all of the stuff that goes along with putting your house on the market. I represent that. I have the key to all of those things that you want, and I'm not asking you to pay me a portion of your proceeds. I'm asking you to pay me basically what I'm bringing, the value that I'm bringing to the table above and beyond what it is you're looking for. I have never had a seller argue that point with me. And I'm telling you, I've done this on, the biggest example I could give you is I did this on a $2.6 million new construction deal that I got both sides of and they paid me a full fee. So I know that it works. You think that the average builder out there wants to pay 6%? They don't. But here's the thing. It was like, the time value of going to market and all these other things, it represented an advantage to this particular builder. He was okay with it as long as I built it on top of his fee, on top of what he was looking for, because it doesn't hurt him in that manner. So if you do this, Well, now I have a signed listing for 6% in my pocket. Let's just say hypothetically, we're going to use that $1 million example. I go there, I bring my buyer, and the buyers are like, I love this house, but I'm just not doing it for, for $1 million or for $1,060,000. $1,040,000 I'll pay for it. Okay, well now I have a decision. Do I want to take 4%? Do I want to negotiate with the seller? Do I want to try to get that buyer up? Like, I have options there. The option's mine though. Wouldn't you rather have the option versus your buyer or your seller having the option? I want the option. Because if I feel like it makes sense, now think about this in theory. Even if I accepted that 4%, I just turned a buyer into 4%. It's still better than what I would get in the open market. It still makes business sense for me. It's a no-brainer to do. So this is an easy way to get your average commission up. Simple. But you have to be stern about it. You can't be wishy-washy. Oh, I'll bring my buyer and let's see if it works out. No. If you want me to bring my buyer, we sign an agreement. If they're unwilling to sign the agreement, not a problem. I'm not showing your house. It's a hard position to take. You have to take it. Questions about that? Make sense? D, RealVitalize. I'm not going to go into any detail on this, and the reason why is the last broker's open. For those of you who attended, we did a whole deep dive on RealVitalize. I have never seen a program that Coldwell Banker has come out with in my entire life. I've been with this company for 15 plus years that has increased commission rates more than RealVitalize. This drives commissions all the time. 6, 7, 10%. I'm not kidding you. I've signed off on all sorts of different commissions, most of it coming in on the list side, and it's been beneficial to the seller. I'm going to put out a video in the next, I know you're waiting on the slides from me, I know. But Siobhan, once I get her the slides and she gets me back the edits, I'm going to put it out. Please watch the video if you didn't attend. I guarantee you it'll help you drive more commissions, more listing side commission. So I'm not going to go into any more detail on that. E, buyer commission agreements. So I don't love exclusive buyer agency agreements. It's not my favorite thing in the whole wide world, but I'm going to give you an example of where I think it makes a lot of sense. How many of us are dealing with investors? A lot of us. And the reality is, it's hard to get an investor a house. It's really hard. You have to do a lot of due diligence to find properties that are worth investing in. And most of these people are making a significant amount of money return-wise in terms of if you find them a property. If I'm working with an investor in today's market, I would be getting this signed. And you don't have to charge 2.5%. I'm going to give you the example of it. Is if I'm working with an investor and they're looking, I know this doesn't exist right now, but just let me give the extreme. I'm looking for $30,000 properties that are burnt down buildings that I want to build, multifamilies on. We have buyers that do that. Does it make any sense to you? Like, go back to that business mindset. Does it make any sense to you to go out there and try to get those $30,000 properties for the 2.5% that's getting paid out on them? No. It doesn't make any sense, especially for people that are buy and hold. Like, you're not getting it on the flip side, so it has no value to you for the $30,000. You're wasting your time, essentially. It goes back to, Timmy or Tommy, the tenant, or whatever his name was. So the thought process is how do you make it more lucrative to you? You could do a flat fee. You could say, listen, we're going to sign a buyer's agency agreement, exclusive agency agreement. If I find you a $30,000 place, you got to pay me 10 grand. Like, you're going to buy your $30,000 place and you're going to build it and you're going to make money for years to come, but I'm going to make my $10,000. Like, that's a guarantee. And some of you may be thinking, like, do people actually sign these? I have seen people in this room right now, I'm not going to name names, that have gotten paid $30,000 for the exact same thing. So I know for a fact that it happens all the time, and it's not usury at all. Because the God's honest truth is, even at $30,000, these people are making so much money off these deals, it makes sense to them. So as an investor, if you bring me something that I couldn't find by myself and I'm making hundreds of thousands of dollars off this investment, I'm okay paying you 20 grand. And it's going to raise your average commission rate because you're just smart about it. Be smart. Please.
So Michael, so what do you say to say a newer agent who just realized that his clients are going to maybe make an offer on something and he just notices paying like It's like, really?
It's a harder question because buyer agency agreements need to be negotiated up front. So, listen, this is a loaded statement that I'm going to make, but I really feel this way. I think buyer commissions are under attack right now. It's part of the reason we're having this conversation, and I think it's only going to get worse. So, as a course of business, me personally, I think it makes a lot of sense to have buyer agency agreements signed with all buyers, universally making that the policy moving forward. Some people cringe when I say that because that's not how I learned real estate either, but I think that there's going to come a point in time where that's going to happen. And we're gonna get, just like we get listing agreements signed, we're gonna get buyer agency agreements signed. I mean, there's a court case going on right now between the Department of Justice and a bunch of different, National Association of Realtors, a bunch of different franchises, us included, that is dealing with this specific topic. I would be shocked if it doesn't end with some type of settlement like related to what I'm talking about. I think buyers are going to be paying commissions at some point in time, and the faster we kind of get on board with that, the more you'll be protected and the more you'll make in instances where the other broker is not doing right.
I think it's already the law.
Yeah, it's the law in a bunch of different places. And I think you're going to see more and more of that. I don't have a crystal ball, but it would be surprising if that doesn't happen to me. F, doubt versus belief. So 84% of the market is asking for a minimum of 5%. 84%. My question to you, and this is just the way I feel about life in general, are you not worth more than most of the people that are out there? Because I know a lot of agents that are terrible at what they do. I do. It's the God's honest truth. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm egotistical, maybe I'm arrogant. I don't think so. I think I'm just confident. But I think that the reality is there's not a lot of people out there that could do what I could do. And I really do believe that you guys could say the same thing. I really believe that in my heart. You have to believe it. You have to believe that, because if you think you're worth the same as the 84% of agents that are out there, then you are. Whatever you believe is what you are, because that's going to be how you approach it. So to me, I'm just going to say, for the people that are wishy-washy about the belief in how good you are, my thing would be this. There's a lot of lines between 5 and 6. There's a lot of lines. Look at all these lines. Why do we go from here to here in 30 seconds? Not even 30 seconds. Will you negotiate your commission? Yes, I'll take 5%, please. Why? What are we doing? Some of you don't even ask for this. A lot of people just go to 5. Some people don't even go to 5. I'll take it for 3.5. Let me have it. And not in this room, fortunately. But the truth of it is that's what happens. Why do we think that we're the same as the 84% of agents that are already getting this? We're not. I already showed you that Coldwell Banker sells so many more houses than everybody else. All of these other agents, many of them are at competitors that are doing far less business, have no tools, don't even know what to do once they get the listing. It just makes sense. Go ahead, Marvin.
Well, I'll say I did one for 5.87.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of freaking lines. So, can I put you on the spot, Debbie? Can I put you on the spot for a second? I know you asked for 6. Yeah, I know that you're a 6% listing agent. At least you'll ask for it. My question to you is, just give a number, ballpark, percentage-wise, of how many people just say yes. Don't even argue. Don't even debate. Just or yes.
It depends on the price point
Yeah.
and where I am. So I don't think I can give a comparison, but we do always ask for a 6.
Yeah.
Probably, 20% of our business is 6%?
Yeah.
Because I give out 2.5 and I take in 3.5.
So, and
But there's a lot in between.
yeah, agreed. And I apologize, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, even though I am. But the thought process is even if it's 20% of the time, people just say yes. That's 20% more than not asking. That's still a significant margin as it relates to your bottom line, especially the amount of business that Debbie and her team are doing. But all of you guys are in the same boat. You ask for it and magically you make more money.
Michael, when I was on a team in the Watertown office, we got 8%.
8%?
Like a little townhouse, 8%.
Yeah. Listen, I'm telling you right now, in the last 6 months, I've signed off on 10% listings, 9% listings, 8% listings. I'm not kidding you. I swear to God. Like, there's no question about it that happens. I'm going to go to the last point here. Variable commissions can be written into the margin. Easy example, 6% or 5.5% if sold by the listing agent. Why would I suggest that? Is sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes people need you to give them something. They just need to feel like they're winning. Like, they don't care if they're winning on the overall commission. They care if they're winning that, like, I got something in this negotiation. People do feel that way. Like, that's a real thing. Like, if I don't get anything here, I didn't even do what I was supposed to do. I'm going to look stupid to my husband, or I'm going to look stupid to my wife, or whatever. Like, that happens. Like, or I'm going to feel stupid. Like, people want to feel like they're winning. So give them something if you need to give them something. But it doesn't have to be the total commission. Because why would you do a variable commission at 5.5 if I sell it myself? Because, okay, if I sell it myself, one, they're incentivized to take my offer, which is not the worst thing in the world. And two, I know that overall, I'm making more volume on this deal. Like, volume is what pays us. Like, it makes sense to do it this way if we could get it that way. So, again, you have a lot of lines there between 5 and 6, but you also have alternative ways to actually make more money. You just have to be creative, and when you're sitting in front of them and know that this is an avenue I could use, or that's an avenue that I could use. And if you want to get more creative and you have a specific situation, come see me because I love doing this. Like, I have no problem structuring all sorts of weird deals to make this work. In conclusion, ask more. You're worth it. That's the truth of it. You're worth it. Like, ask for it. If you ask for it, you're going to get it. Got a couple more things and then I'm done. If you haven't seen this, Comedy Lane is basically who replaced Ryan Gorman. She's our brand new CEO and president. I got her lined up to do our Brokers Open next Wednesday. It's the first time she's speaking in New Jersey. It's basically her intro to our marketplace, and she's going to give like a whole breakdown on like what we're doing moving forward. Let's put it that way. Like, that to me makes a lot of sense. If you never heard Al Garcia is like my counterpart. Al is the man. Like, he's going to give a whole thing on leadership. He was an Army Ranger. He's going to talk about like what he learned in the military and how it applies to business and real estate. And Virginia Camiano is the president of, she runs a big team in South Jersey. She was out of Princeton, now she's out of Metuchen, but she also is the president of NARAP for North Jersey. She's got a ton of connections, like really good. She's gonna talk about mindset, like, how to like find your superpower, so to speak. If you haven't signed up for it, really simple, just take a picture of this and you could sign up right now. It's a free event next Wednesday from 10 to 1. It's gonna be really good. I already know, I could feel the energy that I'm already feeling with the conversations I'm having about it. I'm gonna flip back to that in 1 second. Please go ahead.
I'm glad that you clarified that she's gonna be in person comedy.
Yeah.
Because I just had a few people asking, like, oh, is it gonna be virtual? Is she gonna?
No, she's gonna be standing there waving at you. So, we'll also have lunch and all that stuff. I'm gonna go back to this slide in 1 second. I'll leave it on this so you guys can take pictures. But I don't usually list or sell properties any longer. Like, Coldwell Banker pays me not to compete. But the honest truth is my next door neighbor approached me to put their house on the market. So I did. I just brought this house on. I'm not even trying to push this house in this meeting. What I am trying to do is let you guys know that anybody who doesn't have a listing, or even if you do have a listing, you're welcome to use this listing. It's 41 Madison Avenue, New Providence. You could use it as if it's yours. Like, I'm not looking for buyers. I'm not looking for referrals. I'm not looking for anything. I'm only looking to help you guys build your business. So the reality is, if you want it, it's a beautiful home, like really awesome. You could use all of my pictures. You could do whatever you want online to push it as if you're the listing agent. Just try to make sure that you keep it in line with the marketing that I'm putting together, because I want to make sure it's what the seller wants. But use it to any advantage you want to try to drive your business, okay? What was that? I couldn't hear you. What'd you say? I couldn't hear you. 6%. Yes. 6%, 2.5 out. I'm glad you asked me that question. It's on for $950, which is a really good price. I think so. So that's that. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Any questions, by the way? No? What? We're good? All right.